What's up, Venture Church? Hey, listen, let me just say real quick, wherever you are hanging out with us today, all across South Mississippi, and really, man, all across the world with Church Online, man, we are so thankful, man. We're so honored that you're here, that you chose to be here to worship with us, to hang out with us. And listen, today, we don't take that for granted. I want you to know that, man. We prayed for you today and where you are with your walk with Jesus. And, man, we're praying and we're believing that no matter where you are, no matter what your story is, hey, listen, God has something special for you today. And so we are wrapping up our fall series called The Nine, looking through the enneagram. For the past several weeks, we've been kind of talking about the enneagram a little bit, looking at the different numbers and using those numbers and those ideas and kind of those ways of thinking to point back, really not necessarily about the enneagram, but using that as an instrument and a tool to point back to a good God. Right, a good God that created us, and a good God that knows us in our uniquenesses and our intricacies and in our weirdness. Right, that's one of the things I've loved about this series is that I've had so many conversations. People have said, "Man, listen, I used to think I was so weird." Right, like I was the only one that thought this way, and now, like I still know I am a little weird, but at least I'm not weird alone. Right, like there's other people that think like this, and that just makes me feel better. I've had a lot of great conversations. People have said, man, like this series it's really kind of opened up some great conversations and some great discussions with my spouse or with people I work with or with my kids, trying to understand kind of where they think and how they respond to different situations. And man, you know what? Like, it's just good to know that they're not weird and crazy. Like I thought they were, but yeah, okay, I guess maybe it is a little normal. So that makes me feel better. And so today, we're going to wrap this series up by looking at the last number on the Enneagram, the number 9. Now, nines, I'll go ahead and tell you, I am a 9 through and through. Like, this is where I live. This is how I think. There's just no doubt about it. My wife can tell you I live in this world. And so nines, right, when we talk about nines, we call them most of the time the peacemakers. And it's because as a 9, we have this innate desire, this drive within us to find, to hold on to experience, to share peace in any and all circumstances. We love the idea of peace. It's what we crave. It's what we long for in life. And so we'll do anything to experience that peace and to hold on to that peace. And listen, that's a good thing, right? For example, nines make great mediators. One of the things we love to do is we love to bring everybody to the table, hear your story, hear your perspective. We genuinely care about your story and your perspective. We understand your perspective, even if we don't agree with you. Like, we understand how you or why you think that way and kind of how you got to that point. And so, like, man, we care and we want to hear that. And so, man, we love to bring everybody to the table and find solutions to problems or find ways forward that kind of fits everybody's needs, everybody's desires, everybody's perspectives. We love that. We are some of the most easygoing people. Like, we are just steady state people. Like, we will take any circumstance, any situation with the exact same stride. Like, we will smile our way through any circumstance. It doesn't really matter what. I've had people call me in some of their worst moments in life just to say, hey, Kyle, listen, I knew you would be calm. Like, my life is crazy right now. I don't know what to do, but I knew you would be calm. You would talk to me in a calm way, and I need a calm voice right now. And so in that way, nines a lot of times can represent the divine nature of God, the peaceful divine nature of God, right? That no matter what the circumstance is, no matter what the situation is, there is peace and there is calm to be found, especially in our heavenly Creator, right? And now understand that sounds like I'm just painting a pretty picture for you, that I'm just trying to give you all the upside, and I am, to an extent, trying to paint a pretty picture for you, right? Like, I do want you to see that there is good here. Like, there is a lot of upside, man. There is strengths to this particular way of thinking and this kind of mindset. But I also want you to see, and this is something we've talked about every single week as we've been talking through this series, we've been talking through these different numbers, that what makes us strong in a moment, what makes us strong in a season or in a circumstance, when that becomes distorted or twisted, then what makes us strong can become our weakness, right? Like, what is a strength for us in a season, when that becomes twisted, or when our understanding or our perception of the world around us or ourselves or our God, when that becomes distorted or twisted, then that thing which was our strength can become our weakness. So, for example, for a 9, one of our strengths is peace. right? We love the idea of peace. We want to hold on to peace. We want to give you peace. We want you to experience peace with us. Like all is right in our world when you are peaceful, because if you're peaceful, we can be peaceful, and like we want that. But that need for peace, right, can very easily become an avoidance or an aversion to conflict. And so where we love peace, we hate conflict. And we know that sometimes conflict is necessary, right? But we will, in a desire, in an attempt to hold on to peace, man, we will have a really difficult time leaning into conflict that we need to have. And so we might not say the things that need to be said in our marriages and our relationships. We might not say the things that need to be said to the people we work with or to our friends. We might not lean into those difficult conversations because more than we want to fix that problem, we want to hold on to peace. And if addressing that problem means breaking the peace, well, then I'm going to have a difficult time doing that. But it's not just peace in our relationships that we strive for, right? Like it's peace in ourselves. And so we'll do whatever it takes to hold on to our own personal internal peace. And so what that means is we're going to have a hard time dealing with our own personal, our own internal conflict, our own internal junk. We're going to have a hard time dealing with our junk. Because if I'm going to deal with that problem, that means I have to admit that there's a problem. And if I have to admit that there's a problem with me or how I view things, and that's going to break my peace. That's going to kind of mess up that peace and that sense of calm that I'm trying to hold on to. And this is where our core sin of slothfulness or laziness comes from. Laziness is probably a better word. Now understand, because I already see people, this has happened every time I've talked about this. I say that and everybody's already looking at somebody. You see? Now, when I say laziness, though, I don't necessarily mean physical laziness. While that might be a way it kind of manifests itself where it looks in your life, when I talk about laziness, I'm talking about a more emotional or relational laziness than necessarily physical laziness, because we will check out on. We will go to sleep on. We will allow ourselves to grow numb to. As a matter of fact, we try to grow numb to the problems in our lives and around our lives, because if we can pretend that those problems don't exist, then we can create this false narrative that everything's okay. If I can just push that problem to the side, if I don't have to deal with that problem right now, if I can just push it out of my mind, then I can create this sense that, hey, everything's okay, there is no problem, and then I can hold on to my sense of peace. And I know that sounds crazy, and we know that sounds crazy. Like, we get that, right? Because we know that by not addressing our problems, like, we don't make them go away. They don't magically disappear because we ignore them. When we don't address the problems, when we don't address the issues in our own lives, all we're doing is we're giving those problems space to grow. And so where we might try to avoid a conflict now, we set ourselves up to experience a greater conflict later. A great example of this is Abraham and Lot in Genesis chapter 13. Abraham and Lot, they were family members. Lot was Abraham's nephew, and so God had blessed their family. God had blessed them in incredible ways, just giving them incredible possessions, and so much so that the land really couldn't hold them. The land couldn't hold all of their people and all of their possessions and all that God had blessed them with. And so what happens when you get a bunch of people crowded up together in one space? You start fighting, right? You get aggravated with those people that keep bumping into you at Walmart. So people start fighting, right? And that's what happened. Some of Abraham's servants, some of Lot's servants, they started fighting together. And so Abraham and Lot, instead of kind of dealing with the issue, instead of confronting the heart of the problem, they separated themselves from it. They said, you know what? Let's just not deal with this. You go one direction, I'll go the other, and we won't have to deal with this anymore. And so Lot and his people, they end up settling in the region that becomes Sodom and Gomorrah, where, by the way, Lot continues to ignore the issues and lives around him. And what ends up happening is Sodom and Gomorrah is destroyed because of their wickedness, and a lot of Lot's family is as well. All because a problem, a situation, wasn't addressed at the beginning, it was separated. Now, you know what? I don't want to deal with this. Let's just push it to the side. Another great example of this is the story of Jonah, and this is where I want us to hang out today. Jonah, if you have a copy of God's Word, you can go to Jonah chapter 1. We're going to hang out the first couple of verses of chapter 1, the beginning of Jonah's story. And here's what I want to show you through Jonah's story, okay? I want to show you through Jonah's story that the pursuit of peace, the pathway to peace in our lives, doesn't come from avoiding conflict. It comes from leaning into it. That the pursuit of peace, the pathway to peace, goes through conflict, not around it. We can't continue to just ignore the problems. We can't continue to push those problems to the side. We can't continue to ignore the difficult conversations we need to have and expect everything to be okay. It is a false narrative of peace. You are fooling yourselves. We are growing numb to the problems, the issues, in an attempt to convince ourselves that everything's right in our life. And at some point, we got to realize that the only way we're truly going to find that peace we crave is when we push into, is when we lean into those difficult conversations and those difficult moments and begin to grow in the areas we need to grow in. And so Jonah, chapter 1, verse 1, it says, "Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, wake up, get up, pay attention. Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and call out against it, for their evil has come up before me." Okay, now hang on just one second here because I want to give you a little historical context. Nineveh is one of the capital cities of a nation called Assyria. Now here's why that's important. These were some bad dudes, okay? I mean, these were people you did not want to mess with. This was a nation, this was a city, this was a group of people completely devoid of grace, of mercy, of love, of anything that represented God. These people had no ideal of it. They did not like you. No matter what you look like, no matter where you came from, they didn't like you. And so God wakes Jonah up one day and says, hey, listen, wake up. I got something for you to do. I got a work for you to be a part of. I need you to go to Nineveh. Yeah, I know they're bad people. I know they're scary. I get it. But I need you to go, and I need you to tell them, hey, you're evil. Right? I mean, that's the message. Hey, I see you're evil. God sees you're evil. And so here's Jonah's response. Verse 3, it says, "But Jonah rose to flee, to run away to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. He went down to Joppa, and he found a ship going to Tarshish. And so he paid the fare, and he went on board." Hey, listen, side note, let me just tell you, there's always a price to be paid to run from God. Right? Oftentimes we think that our calling, that our obedience to God is going to cost us something, and maybe it will. We'll talk about that in just a second. It's going to cost us some kind of confrontation. It's going to cost us some kind of conflict. But listen, I promise you, running from God will cost you far more. There is always a price to be paid to get on that boat, to run away from where God is calling you to. But it says that Jonah paid the fare and he went on board to go with them to Tarshish. Again, it says away from the presence of the Lord. Now, I could show you on a map. We could take a map and I could show you how Nineveh kind of sits over here. And then there's Jonah. And then there's Tarshish down here. And how Jonah is literally running the opposite direction from where God's called him to go. Like Jonah is physically going as far away from where he is called to go as possible. But what's important here is not the physical location. What's important here is it tells us twice that Jonah is running from the presence of the Lord. Jonah thought that if he got away from his calling, he could get away from his conviction. That if he could somehow change his position, he could get away from, he could avoid the presence of God. But come on, somebody knows that you can never outrun the presence of God. Right? One of the things I love about Venture Church is that we are a church for the unchurched. Right? And when we say, and we genuinely mean it, that this is a place where you can belong even before you believe. And so maybe you're not ready to believe everything in the Bible. Hey, listen, you can still find community, and you can still find a people that will love you, that will have grace and mercy towards you. And because of that, I know that there are people here today, man, that you've been running from God for a long time. You've been running to everything other than God. You know God has placed something in your life or on your life, but you don't want to deal with it. And so you've been running, and you've ran so far, and you've ran to so much junk that you think there's no way God could ever find me in this mess. Well, I want you to know that no matter how long you've been running from God, God hasn't been running from you. No matter how far you've ran from God, God has never lost sight of you. He has not ran from you. As a matter of fact, if anything, he's running to you, right? Like the father and the prodigal son who runs out to meet his son on the road. Man, listen, God isn't running from you. He's running after you. One of the great parts of Jonah's story, if you know the kind of arc of Jonah's story, it goes on to say that when Jonah gets on the boat and he runs from God, that God sends a storm on the boat. And you read that and you're like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. God's getting Jonah. Yeah, okay, God's punishing Jonah for running from him. Yeah, okay, I get that because I feel that in my life. Like, man, I've been running, man, I've been disobeying, man, I haven't been living the life I know I should, and man, all this stuff's happening around me. God's getting me. But what's an incredible truth about Jonah's story is that God doesn't send the storm to punish Jonah. The storm isn't a product of God's wrath. It's a product of God's mercy. Right? And I believe, and listen, this isn't for everybody. I know this, but this is for somebody today. The storm that's in your life, the circumstances, the situations that you're dealing with, that deep down you feel like, man, this is just God getting me, man. This is just God punishing me. No, listen, you've got it wrong. God isn't punishing you. God's rescuing you. God's not trying to push you away. God's trying to pull you back. You've been running from him, and God doesn't want to push you further. He wants to bring you back home. That's what he's doing with Jonah. When he sends a storm, he's not pushing Jonah away. He's calling him back. So back to this idea of peace, right? The whole reason we're in Jonah's story. The pursuit of peace. Now Jonah, here in the first couple of verses, we see that he is going to sleep on this idea of confrontation. One of the things that Jonah is avoiding in his life is confrontation. Now obviously, he's avoiding confrontation with the Ninevites, right? I mean, he's already said, or God's already told him, I need you to go and I need you to speak out against their evil. I need you to go and I need you to tell them, I see your evil. And so we understand a little bit why Jonah would kind of run from this, right? Because if Jonah goes to that city and does this thing, there's a high chance he doesn't leave that city, right? There's a high chance he doesn't make it out alive. And so it makes sense in our mind why Jonah would kind of want to avoid this idea. But I think that we do the same thing on probably some much lower, much more personal, much more down-to-earth levels, right? For example, how many times have you seen somebody you love that you genuinely care about get into a relationship that you knew was going to end poorly for them, that you knew was going to end in heartbreak, but you didn't say anything because you didn't want to cause that conflict. You didn't want to have that difficult conversation. You didn't want to hurt that relationship. Have you ever seen somebody you loved, you cared about, begin to run with some people that man, you knew was going to lead them down a wrong path, and you begin to see them take on some actions that were bordering on the edge of some very destructive addictions. And instead of saying something, you just pretended it would go away. Oh man, I prayed for them. But you didn't say anything to them. How many times have you seen somebody you cared about, somebody you love, all of a sudden, man, they're at church once a month. Oh man, they're at church once every couple of months, and you see them fading out of church, you see them fading out of your growth group, and you see them fading out of community, but instead of saying something, because you don't want to lean into that conversation, you just hope, they'll figure it out, they'll come back around. We have a hard time leaning into this idea of confrontation because we don't want to cause that conflict. And so I want you to know that we have, and this is what I like to call, we have a responsibility to accountability. And here's what that means, right? I know there's some fancy words, but all that means is that we need people, right? That's the easy way of understanding it. We need people. We are not created to live in isolation. We are not created to experience the highs of life, the lows of life, the mountains, the valleys. We're not created to live that, to experience that alone. We need people investing in us, and we need to be investing in people, right? We need people that can call us back from the line, that can call us to the table and say, hey, listen, I see this in your life. And it's not a good thing. It's not healthy. You need to check this. Hey, I see this in your life. And man, it's beautiful. You need to lean into this. You need to explore what God's doing. And we need that. We need people in our life like James talks about. It says, man, to pull them back, to save them from destruction. We need people to say, listen, this path is going to lead you to destruction. You need to come back from this. And the flip side of that is just as true. We need to be that for somebody. We need to be able to lean into people's lives and say, man, I see this in you. We need to help them live the life and be the person that God's called them to. But Jonah here, Jonah's not just avoiding confrontation with the Ninevites. Jonah's also avoiding confrontation with himself. Because one of the things we'll see in Jonah's story that he struggles with is this idea, it's like an overblown sense of nationalism. As a matter of fact, I would probably call it racism, if anything. But one of the things we'll see Jonah struggling with is this idea of, God, you want to save Nineveh? Like, really? Like, you know their sins, right? Like, that's them sins. Like, that's not like my sins. That's like that. No. Like, those people, they don't get you. If they got you, they wouldn't be doing that stuff, right? They wouldn't be struggling with that if they really understood you. If they were really ready for your grace, they wouldn't be doing that stuff. My say, it ain't nothing compared to theirs. Like, those people, like, God, they don't deserve your grace. They don't look like your people. They don't deserve your mercy. God, they don't talk like your people, but my people. Yeah, God, we're Israel, right? Like we deserve your grace. We deserve your mercy. Not them. And for Jonah, if he's going to obey where God or what God's calling him to do, if he's going to go the places and do the things that God's calling him to do, he's going to have to confront an issue in his own life. He's going to have to confront his own problems. You see, I think one thing that we forget oftentimes is that God's call in our life to go and change the world, man, it starts with us. Right? Like God's call for us to go and be a part of something special, it starts with his work in us. God is working in us, not just through us. If we're going to be a part of what God is calling us to be a part of, then listen, we're going to have to deal with some stuff in our own life, right? Jonah's story goes on. I want to show you this real quick. You look down at verse 6. Really, I'm going to back up. I'm going to read a line in verse 5. It might not be on the screen, but it says this. It says, "But Jonah had gone down into the inner part of the ship, and he had laid down and was fast asleep." Now, this is at the point where God sends a storm on the boat, right? So God has sent the storm. Jonah's running away. God sends the storm, and it says, Jonah, dude went and took a nap. Verse 6 says, "So the captain came and said to him, 'What do you mean, you sleeper? Arise, wake up, get up, call out to your God, and maybe, man, perhaps your God will hear you, and maybe, just perhaps, we'll be saved.'" 3 times in Jonah's story, we hear this word, arise, get up, wake up, pay attention. Here in this moment, Jonah is literally sleeping to avoid his problems. You ever been so overwhelmed with trouble, you just went and took a nap? Come on, yeah. You just need a nap. I can't deal with it. I can't think about this. I'm going to sleep. That's Jonah. I'm out. I know there's a storm. I know we're probably all going to die. I'm out. I got to take a nap. I can't deal with this right now. And he goes to sleep. And so the captain comes and wakes him up. He's like, "Are you serious? Wake up. Like, what are you doing? Like, get up." Jonah is sleeping here. When we first see him, when God wakes him up in verse 2, Jonah's sleeping on his calling, right? He's sleeping on the thing God's called him to do. But here, Jonah's sleeping to avoid his problems. And as 9s, we do this. We'll go to sleep on the issues and the struggles we have in life. And I believe this, man. I believe wholeheartedly God has brought somebody to this place today. It might not be today when I'm talking. It might be 6 months from now, and you're sitting at home in your pajamas watching this online. But I believe God has brought somebody to this moment so he could tell you, wake up. Get up. Listen, pay attention. There's something to be a part of. There is life changing. There is eternity changing. There is grace giving work to be a part of. And God is calling you to be a part of it. Quit being content to take a nap and let life happen around you. Say yes. Wake up and say yes to the life, to the adventure of life that God's called you to be a part of. Man, we got something special and unique to be a part of. Let's quit being content to just go to sleep on it. And listen, I know you need a nap. I get it. I'm going to go take a nap this afternoon, I promise you. Every Sunday, it just happens, right? I'm going to go take a nap. And so I get it. I'm not trying to be a hypocrite here. I know you need a nap. I get it. We need naps. We need sleep. We need rest so that we can be rested to dive into, to lean into the life that God's called us to live, right? But quit sleeping to avoid the life God's called you to live. See, there's a big difference there. Man, I just don't know if I can do that. Like, man, I don't have the time. Man, I don't know if I can serve. I don't know. I got to sleep in a little bit. I'm just so tired. Man, I don't know if I can be in a group. I don't know if I can lead a group. I mean, do I really have the time? Well, do you really have an hour to sit on the couch and scroll through your phone? Yeah, probably. So why don't you use that time for something that's going to change somebody's life? Why don't you lean into what God's calling you to do? Why don't you lean into and be a part of something bigger than yourself? Listen, I know it feels good to sit on that couch and pretend like everything's okay, right? I know that. But you will never truly be satisfied until you begin to leverage your influence for something bigger than yourself. That's what God's calling you to be a part of. Something bigger than yourself. Quit being content to sit on the couch. Man, and lean into what God's calling you to do. And so listen, we're going to skip over the major arc of Jonah's story here because I want to give you 4 quick ways in which you can grow. If you're a 9, man, these are some very simple things you can do to kind of grow in the person that God's called you to be. You can grow in the things that God's called you to do. If you have a 9 in your life, then these are ways in which you can help them grow. You can lean into these things with them. Okay, 4 very simple things. Here's the first one. Develop one discipline. Just one discipline. Listen, don't overthink this. Don't Jesus juke this. You ain't got to make this hyper spiritual. Just look into your life. What's one thing, what's one area where you can identify a weakness? Where you can say, you know what, I need to get better at this thing. Maybe it's your physical health. Maybe it's your nutrition. Maybe it's the time you spend investing in your family, in your wife or your husband or your kids. Maybe it's the time you spend investing in your own personal knowledge or wisdom. Like, what's one thing you can do? What's one weakness in your life? And then think about, develop one discipline to grow in that. One thing to get better at that. Because here's why. Here's why I say this, okay? Because I believe wholeheartedly you will learn that you will begin to figure out that, man, while identifying that weakness doesn't feel good, while it doesn't feel good in the moment to say, yeah, you know what? I'm doing poorly at this. It does feel good to say, yeah, you know what, I'm doing poorly at this, but I'm getting better. Yeah, I'm not perfect at this, but man, I'm getting better. I'm growing in it. I'm working on it. And when we realize that that does actually feel good, it does actually feel good to confront our own issues and then work towards making them better, we'll begin to do that in other areas in our life. But just start with one. One discipline, one area that you can grow in. Here's the second thing. This is very simple. It's going to be true for almost everybody in the room, but especially for our nines. Add some structure to your spiritual life. Put a little structure around your spiritual life. Listen, it doesn't have to be 3:30 in the morning, okay? It doesn't have to be 2 hours of quiet solitude. Now, if that's you, that's awesome. That's great. But it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to look the same for every person. Just add a little structure to your spiritual life. Here's why. We are the most easygoing people in the world, right? Nines, man, we're just rolling with the flow, whatever it looks like. And I'll tell you this. Man, if we're up and there's work to be done and we're doing that work, hey, listen, we got it. Get out of our way. We'll make it happen. Don't worry about stopping us. We're going to make this work, right? But the second we stop, we're done. Shot. Done. Count us out. You let me get to the couch, I'm over, right? You're not going to get me up. You're not going to get me to do anything else. The whole idea of an object in motion stays in motion, but an object at rest stays at rest, we live that. Every moment of every day, if we're moving, we're grooving, we're good. But if we stop, you're not getting us up, I promise. Yesterday, we were doing some chores around the house. My wife, Brooke, and I, we were doing some stuff around the house. My wife's one of those that, like, while she's doing work, she's working hard, but she needs to do a little, and then she needs to stop and take a break. And then she'll be good to do a little bit more, and then she needs to stop and take a break. And then she can do a little bit. Not me. I can't do that, because once I stop and take a break, I'm broken. I'm done. I'm not getting back up, all right? And so I just got to keep rolling. I got to keep going, and it aggravates her. But we know that, like, that's just how we're going to get the most done, right? So here's what happens with our spiritual life. We'll oftentimes save that, hoping that we'll have the emotional reserves or the energy reserves left to take care of that very important thing, right? A relationship with our Heavenly Father. Man, we'll save that till we get to the end of the day. We've done everything else, and now we'll focus on this. But by the time we get to the couch, we don't have those reserves anymore. They're done. We're shot. And so add some structure so you know, man, at this point, I'm going to spend some time with my Heavenly Father. I'm going to spend some time. It's too important. Listen, it's just too important to push it off and hope you got the reserves at the end of the day. Man, spend some time. Add some structure so that you know, hey, this time, this moment, today, I don't need to be in a meeting. I don't need to take a phone call. I just need to have a conversation with my Heavenly Father. Because listen, if we're not right there, if I'm not right with my relationship with my Heavenly Father, I'm not going to be right in my relationship with you. It's too important to push off. And so add that structure. Here's a third thing. And this is where you got to kind of flip a switch in your mind, okay, but it's worth it. Here's a third thing. Own that you have, as a nine, listen, you have good insights and good ideas. Don't be afraid to share them. Listen, I know what it feels like to be in the meeting and think, you know what, I don't need to say anything because they're going to think I'm a naysayer. Listen, I don't want to say anything because they're going to think I'm a know-it-all. Listen, we need you. We do. We need your insights. We need your ideas. We need you to lean into the conversation, to press into the conversation. If you got a nine in your life, man, one of the great things you can do to help them out is you can ask them, hey, what do you think about this? Hey, what are you feeling about this? Hey, what's your opinion on this? And understand it's going to take us some time to figure that out. Like, we need some space to think about it. But listen, when somebody gives you that space to think about it, man, share what you need to share. Like own that you have good insights and ideas. Lean into those moments. Like, we need to hear from you. We don't need you to sit back and be complacent. Here's the last thing. Be honest and real about who you are. Listen, if you don't have a 9 in your life, or you do have a 9, you've never had this conversation with them, man, we spend so much time thinking about what you want, we forget what we want. Honestly, like we worry so much about what you want, man, we forget what we want. Like we all know you're going to have the fight. Like it's just a given. You're going to have the argument about what you want for lunch or what you want for dinner. I don't care. What do you want? Like it happens to everybody. We know that. But listen, for a 9, we genuinely just don't care. We just don't care. Like whatever you want, that's what we want. Listen, I've weighed the options. I might want chicken. I might want a hamburger. But if you want a hamburger, I want a hamburger more. Like, it's just how it works, okay? And so we do that so often, we forget, man, we can easily forget who we are. And so be open, be honest, be real about who you are. Have that conversation with your spouse about what you're feeling and what you think, and man, how that event came across to you, or man, how you experienced that thing, man. Have that conversation. Have that conversation at work. Have that conversation with your kids, with your friends, man. Be honest and real about who you are. And I know, man, I know it's tough. But by ignoring, by avoiding that honesty, man, you're setting yourself up for greater frustration later. So just lean into the confrontation now, because it's going to set you up for a greater relationship later. That's where the peace is going to be found. The peace isn't in avoiding the problems now. The peace is in leaning into them now so that you're stronger later. So be honest and real. And so we've ended this series each week as we've looked at the different numbers. We've ended with a prayer for each number, right? And so we have a prayer for our 9s today. And I want to read this for you. I just kind of want to read this over our 9s today. Here's our prayer for you. It says, Lord, help me to have the energy to live the life you've called me to. Give me the courage to press into the conflict that makes us all better. Strengthen my will to do what I don't want to do, but I know I need to do. And give me the boldness to share the truths you have given me. Hey, let me pray for us, church. Lord, we come before you now, God. I thank you for today. God, I thank you for this church, for this gathering of people. Lord, I just thank you that we get to be a part of an incredible work. And I pray that, God, for 9s in the room and for any other number, regardless of what number on a personality test we might associate with, God, I just pray that you will give us the energy and the passion and the peace to lean into the work and the life that you've called us to be a part of. That we'll lean into the conflict, we'll lean into the conversation, we'll lean into the difficult moments, knowing that, God, you're calling us into a greater work, into a greater relationship, into a greater life in you. Lord, we thank you that we get to know your grace and mercy in the storms of life, even when we are running as far and as fast as we can. And God, I pray that today someone will see that their storm isn't your wrath, but their storm is your mercy. God, and they'll lean into you. We thank you, Lord. All things we ask in your name. Amen.